Hello and welcome to the show. We've got Jay sucking down on a vape, and he wasn't supposed to be doing that. And how are you guys?
We're going good.
Well, somebody got busted straight away.
Yeah, I'm alive.
Do you want to back a little bit? Jay, you're a little bit distorty there. So how's things? How's your week been?
Not bad.
Yeah, good. Very, very hot.
Yeah, if you
Been
don't,
getting between 49 and 50 degrees up here.
yeah, if you don't know, Jay works up north, and he's actually dialing in tonight from his donger up in the middle of nowhere. So it's a bit warmer up there, isn't it?
A lot warmer.
And obviously there's a bit of a delay to up there because he's that far away as well.
The internet out here is really, really bad.
Yeah. All right, well, hopefully we'll keep you for the whole show. How's things with you, Jeremy?
Not bad, not bad. Just busy with family and screaming children, but that'll never change.
Yeah, it's been a good week this week. New job and everything's starting to look up. I've got something I need to tell you guys about after the show, but it's been a very good week.
You have to keep us in suspense, don't you?
I do. You got to wait till the end for that one. Make sure that you guys stay for it all. So yeah, does anybody want to bring up what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Time travel.
Time travel, that's the old nugget. It's not paranormal per se, but it's more science fiction, but it does actually tickle the edges of the paranormal.
Yeah,
So-
and it also fits in with another show that we've done on Urban Legends as well.
It does. It does, yeah.
Yes.
It actually probably fits in with several shows that we've still to record and ones that we've already recorded because there's such a large amount of information out there about it. You know, obviously a lot of it's crap, but there's a lot which is very questionable.
Very much so.
Yeah, well, the documentary I watched on time travel the other night, a lot of scientists, like big name scientists, are pretty sure that it's going to happen within the next 20 years. They've pretty much touched on a way of time travel, basically.
Do you want me to ruin your night?
Do it.
If in 20 years they invented time travel, we would already know.
Well, they haven't actually made it yet, but they believe that they can
You,
actually make a machine that can do it.
you do understand the concept of time travel, don't you?
Going from point A to point B in another dimension, because after all, time is just a dimension. It's not three. It's more than three dimensional.
Oh yeah, yeah. You've got your normal three dimensionals, then you have time, and then you go into alternate dimensions and things like that. It is another dimension in itself. But where I'm going with that is, if for us 20 years it might be available, might be able to do it. But in 20 years' time, if they have done it, what's to say they haven't already come back now? Which does go into some of the things that we are going to bring up a bit later on.
Yeah, my father, God rest his soul, he used to say to us that time is nothing. It's the dimension that we're stuck in.
Yeah.
Time is infinite.
Yeah. It is.
Well, the technicality, would astronauts be time travelers?
They are. They are.
They travel faster than the speed of light.
Well, none of our astronauts do. But this is one of the things that this is one of the things that they say is if you can travel at 0.999 the speed of light, right? If you can travel at that speed for 24 hours, I reckon I think it's about 180 something years will pass on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with that. It's it also opens up the realm for multiverses, other parallel universes and things.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that show Sliders?
No, I haven't.
It's probably showing my age with that one. But there was this guy. He was trying to It's actually not a bad show. He was trying to invent, I think it was anti-gravity or something along those lines, but he actually built an Einstein-Rosen bridge, and he would throw things through and they wouldn't come back, and then eventually he decided he was going to go through himself, and he landed in a alternate universe. He had the timer set for, I think it was only an hour or something like that, and it was very much the same as what we have here until he looked up at a billboard which said Elvis live at the such and such tonight. So obviously in that universe, in that parallel dimension, Elvis was still alive. And obviously when the timer came back, he came back to Earth, and he ended up telling his science professor about it and things like that. And he wanted to show him by going through, and they said it, I think it was for like an hour again or something along those lines. But what happened was some sort of spike happened in the energy, and it blew out, and somebody on the street got sucked into it as well. And they ended up in a completely different parallel universe where everything was basically obliterated, you know. And they came out of the house and there was nothing left. It was a wasteland. And there was this giant cyclone, like a tornado, heading straight for them. And instead of waiting for the time to kick down to go back to where they were, you know, to their proper origin point, they had to fire it off early, which sent them to another alternate dimension. And that's where the show kicks off, because each episode they go to a different alternate dimension, and it's all about them trying to find their way back to their own. And it's actually pretty good, and it's actually based on real mathematics from Einstein. So it's...
Well, it's some of this, like you're saying, with parallel universes, some of the time travel, you can even reach back as far as like with when we spoke about the Bermuda Triangle. I think, Gary, when you were telling the story about the guy on the plane traveled a certain distance in a certain amount of time, supposedly not possible with the wind and the torrential rain and everything else. There was actually a air marshal in, I think it was the UK, Sir Victor Goddard. While he was younger, flying a biplane, he had the same sort of thing happen. And he went in where there was torrential rain and weather and whatnot, and come out on the other side, it was sunny.
Yeah.
You know, is
Well, a lot of the stuff to do with, I mean, it was the last show that we did, the Bermuda Triangle. A lot of stuff to do with that, they do put down to temporal anomalies. So you're talking time, dimension, all of that kind of thing, which it does pose a lot of questions. And when you see some of the evidence, excuse me, like it's been mathematically proven that time travel is possible. It's just our level of technology is not at a point where we can actually do it yet. You know, the power consumption is off the chart to get to some of those sort of power levels required.
As a race, or are you talking all previous races as well?
Sorry, what was that?
Are you talking about us as a civilization now, or are you talking about previous civilizations as well?
I'm talking about us in the here and now.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened to previous races. What was that, Jay? I think we've lost Jay.
Yeah, I think we have lost Jay. Jay, if you're here, say...
The technology.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
We have a frozen picture of... Oh, no, he's back. He's back. But he's out of sync.
I went in time travel.
You're doing a good job of it as well, because your voice is coming ahead of your actual physical body.
So with the whole time travel thing as well, you know, it kind of makes sense that it does happen, because you think about, I think it's pre-Mayans. It might have been the Mayans or just after. They had supercomputers that they could not figure out how to unlock now. They've had counters, and not calculators as such, but counters as such that we don't understand now. The technology is too far advanced.
Oh, you go back to those ancient civilizations. You know, you talk about like Atlantis, right? We don't know whether it really existed or not, but if it did, and the stories that you heard about Atlantis with their flying machines and their giant shiny towers and things like that, it sounds very much like a modern day city, which means they were highly advanced. And it makes you wonder what they did, if they did do it, that created an explosion or an event a seismic event so big that it leveled it and put it at the bottom of the ocean. You know, and all that technology is lost now, and we're still, you know, infantile at the level where we're at. We think we're highly advanced, but we're not. But, you know, you just don't know where we're going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
God, you two were quiet tonight. I thought
try not to speak over each other, I think.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Again, on that level, I think it's got to do with the outer realm of Earth. We're not the extraterrestrial side of things.
With time travel?
Yeah, and with the ancients as well. They had a lot of technology that's far more advanced than what we've got now.
Yeah.
But where did they get it back then?
Well, this is the thing. Who's to say that they weren't super smart? If you
they have big heads.
Well, yeah. If you look at our generation now, right? When I started in school in the UK, the education system over there, there's no way of sugarcoating it. It's shit. But they teach you long division and stuff like that, right? Long division, it used to be awesome. You could keep going and keep going and keep going. When I came to Australia, people would pull out calculators. I thought they were cheating and they were going to get busted. And I said, no, it's allowed over here. Now, you go back all that time ago, a long time ago when I was at school, to where we are now, and I don't think I could show you how to do long division anymore because it's a skill that I've lost. And that's only over 30, 40 years. You think about what we've lost over the last couple hundred years or couple of thousand years, and you've got no idea. You know, I've mentioned it before. I think we're being dumbed down.
Yeah, that's because they remove half your brain when you become an Australian citizen.
That's probably why they needed calculators. I'm going to get myself in so much trouble.
Wasn't that the age-old joke? Oh, when I became a citizen, they removed half my brain.
Yeah, they did, and then replaced it with a meat pie. That's the way it works. But we're going to talk about some of these photos that are floating around on the internet, right? Now, there's one. I actually haven't got them up on my screen at the moment, which is very upsetting. I thought I was going to have it all set up, but I've lost them.
I'll time travel to yours and come back. Is that number 4 about Von Helton?
Hang on. The first one that we're going to talk about, when it decides, I don't know what screen it's going to pop up on because I've got a few screens here.
Von Helton.
Oh, here we go. There they are. No, I don't think it is that one. My photos aren't working. Oh, there it is over there. Sorry. We're right around on the other side. So, the first one we're talking about is, and you'll see it on the screen in a minute because I will be popping it all up, but it is a picture that was taken back in probably the 30s or the 40s, and you can see everybody, black and white photo with their hats on, you know, all the men with their ties and everything. And right smack dam in the middle of it is a guy wearing a hoodie with a t-shirt and very modern sunglasses.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that one before too.
Yep. So this is now that it's pretty good, but you've got to
probably from the 80s.
I don't know. He looks like he's more like from the 90s or something like that. If you look at him,
just look at the style of the eyewear.
Yeah, the glasses are very retro, I have to admit. I'm trying to work out what is on that shirt, but back then you never used to see T-shirts with that kind of print and everything on them.
That was either M or a W.
Yeah.
So it could be like late 80s, early 90s.
Now,
tomato sauce.
No. Anyway, the obvious thing is it's been photoshopped.
Yeah, it actually has. Look at his right shoulder.
What do you mean?
He says it's been photoshopped.
Oh, I think there's a very good possibility. A lot of these have been photoshopped, but
yeah, you look at the way his right shoulder is.
Yeah.
Two people standing behind him on the right hand side.
Yeah.
It's the way they've used a black to make it look like a suit jacket. When the guy that is wearing the suit to the right looks more of a grey blue color. Probably would have been.
Don't know because
They've darkened it around to try and make it work.
I don't know if it's just the way your screen contrast is set, but I can see all the detail in it, and that's what I'm saying. It's a very good fake if it is, and I'm probably going to call fake on that one. But
the shadows.
Yeah, I'm looking at the shadows. I'm looking at it. Like I say, I don't know if my contrast on my screens is set different to yours, but I can see more detail.
I've zoomed into like 300%.
Yeah, I'm zooming in. Same thing. It's... Yeah, I don't know. It you know... Anyway, we will jump to a different...
Jay sitting here going, what are they talking about?
Yeah, this is the thing. So what we've got to remember is there's a lot of people that are just listening in. They're not actually watching this because it is an audio podcast as well as a video podcast. So what we're talking about is probably lost on a lot of people that aren't actually watching. But we've got another. I've got another photo here, which is God. They're all popping up on my wrong screen. Right, this is a newspaper clipping, and it says, "Time traveler skips town. New York's self-proclaimed time traveler Andrew Carlson, the enigmatic Wall Street whiz, jailed for insider trading, vanishes without a trace from his jail cell." So he claims he's from the year 2256. So if he's been charged with insider trading, did he bring some of his future knowledge back with him? And that's where he had a success. Then ultimately he ended up getting charged with insider trading. But the kicker is he was locked in a jail.
That insider trading.
He kicked his...
I call that being smart.
He disappeared from a locked jail cell as well.
Yeah, so was it an inside
Was he
job
related?
that he shouldn't have?
I don't know.
Was he related to Houdini?
Or Harold Holt?
You never know. Anyway, so we'll jump to the next one. We've only got a couple of photos to talk about before we go on to other sort of things. This one, I think Jeremy has been eager to talk about, and that is the
Which one?
Von Helton.
Oh, I thought you were going to go to the astronaut next.
No. We're up to the Von... I don't actually... Oh, I skipped one. Yeah, I did. Whoops. Anyway, we'll do this one. So this one, there's a series of photos from 1857 through to present day, and they all seem to show very similar person. Whether it's actually him or not, I don't know. But there are a lot of similarities between them, although that one from 1916 is very sort of washed out and hard to...
see, 1916, you could say that was Hitler. Is that washed out and that blurry?
You could.
No, well, look at the era. Like the hat, you look at the hat that he's wearing, the jacket he's wearing.
Yeah.
It's that washed out.
Yeah.
1857 and 1945, yes, it's a possibility.
Yeah. All right, we'll jump to the astronaut one. Where's that one? Oh, they're all popping up over here. I'll have to have
The astronaut one, that was from...
a long time ago.
1600s?
That's 16 to 1800s, yeah. Now this was... the caption says, space travel was introduced a few decades back, but what if you see pictures that tell otherwise? The picture that you will see on your screen now is a sculpture on the wall of a church. The church was built somewhere between the 1600s and the 1800s, so that to me is a bit vague because they usually have a rough idea when a church was built. But the sculpture on the side of it clearly shows somebody in a very modern day spacesuit, complete with the gloves, the big boots, the space helmet, and everything. So that's interesting.
If you saw the picture, it looks like Michael Jackson is a space astronaut.
Well, he hasn't got a nose, but that there leads back to what we were talking about before when we were talking about things like Ancient Aliens and the Nazca lines and things like that.
But yeah, that's a different one. That's a difficult one because is it an astronaut or has someone overthought it and seen the plants in the background of that sculpture and gone, that there's a deep sea diver? If you look at the plants behind... No, I'm serious. You look at the plants behind him it looks like coral and seaweeds.
No, I know what you're saying, but if it was built in the 1600s, they didn't have
That's
deep
thinking
sea
time
diving
travel.
stuff at that time. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you,
Even still, there you go. So it's on both parts of time travel.
mm,
Because the first astronaut wasn't till the 60s, I'm pretty sure.
I
No,
think
before
it was
that,
I think it
the
was yeah, I think it was in the late 50s.
Yeah, well, the cosmonauts, which were the Russians.
Yep.
Yep.
That was 61.
Yeah, but they put monkeys up before that, and then obviously
Monkeys, I guess, not subjects.
1969 is when they stepped foot on the moon for the first time. But again, this still predates those by nearly 200 years.
Yes.
So it's
There's
interesting.
some fair detail on that too, though.
Yeah, there is. It's very intricate for what it is. And all right, we've got one more that we're going to have a quick squizzy at because we've already jumped the gun with the Von Helton one. And this is one from 1938. So what we have in this one, which again you'll see on the screen because I'll put them in for you to have a look at, it shows a lady in 1938 with what looks like a mobile phone in her hand. Now, again, it's just a it's a little sort of sharp, dark shadow of a thing. It could be anything, but the way she's holding it, it does look like somebody would hold a phone when they're talking on a phone.
Is there any chance that we can have the link or the video popped up? Because there's an actual video on it.
No.
It's a piece of film.
Not unless you could send it to me. I could see if I could put it up. We'd see.
Yeah, that's all right. It's not a problem. We can look at that after.
My technical abilities.
could actually be makeup.
The technical abilities of myself are still fairly new to all
That's
of
not a
this.
problem. Because there's a few. Because that Von Helton as well. There's a video to go with that.
Yeah. Well, that makes it a little bit more, something to look at anyway, rather than just photos, because photos can be so easily faked, and that's the thing in this day and age. And we all know it when it comes to ghost photos, UFO photos. The internet is absolutely flooded with, with fakes, and it makes it very hard for the actual credible ones, and the real ones to actually get any traction.
But then I suppose it kind of helps us out as well with what we're doing with investigations and whatnot, because it instills that you have to stamp out this, and this.
Well, that's one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons why I do our investigations the way I do, because we can't present anything as proof of paranormal activity unless we can validate it on several fronts, and we can definitely say it wasn't faked. So it's a difficult thing because there are so many things that happen which you and I might know is real on the night, but anybody else looking at that footage would go, yeah, that can be easily faked. And it could very well, in some cases, be fake, but the people that actually do capture it know whether it is or isn't, and it makes it a very hard argument when you know for a fact that it hasn't been faked. And that's it's a difficult thing, and I'm not entirely of the opinion that the government aren't doing it for that reason, because it then discredits a lot of the real stuff that gets put out there. I'm talking more about UFOs and things like that rather than hauntings, but it's the same old. Usually, if it's too good to be true, it is.
Yeah, well, like I think I've said before, is you believe none of what you hear and half of what you see, and you get somewhere close to the truth.
Oh.
And I think we've just lost Jay.
Yeah, we have a big green screen. So
another, like I said, another to do with the time travel. One I spoke just before the show as well is you have the Mike Tyson and McNeely fight.
Yep.
Where you've got a guy in there with a smartphone, looks like one of the first iPhones or Samsungs, I suppose, whatever you want to call it, at this fight. Now that fight happened in '93.
When was the first iPhone released?
The first iPhone smartphone was like 2005, I'm pretty sure.
So it predated it by that far.
You know, and there's a video of it. I've watched the video twice, and it's different.
Mm.
It makes you open your eyes a bit more when it's a video compared to a picture.
There's a lot of stuff out there, but the problem is you have to actually take the time to look at it and research it to know exactly what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot
more
more.
of opening your mind.
Sorry?
It's more of opening your mind, not your eyes.
No, you have to open your eyes, but you have to be ready to accept what is real. And this is the problem with a lot of skeptics. No matter what you want to do, whether it's the paranormal, whether it's UFOs, whether it's Bigfoot, you know, everything that we're interested in, if you're a stone cold skeptic, no one's ever going to tell you it's nothing but crap. And if you're a stone cold believer, no one's ever going to tell you it's not. Where you need to come into it is an open mind, ready to analyze whatever you capture, and whatever you can eliminate, you know, Occam's razor, whatever you're left with, there's got to be the truth. Whether you can explain it or not.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't need to explain what you've captured.
Well, that's what we're out there for. We're trying to explain. That's what we're all about.
No, I understand that aspect, but like, there's certain videos that we've captured ourselves that you don't need to explain anything. It's just clean cut. That's what it is.
Oh yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but they're the ones that, again, it doesn't matter if you've got a skeptic, they're gonna come up with something for it every single time. You know,
100%.
And we know it's true, and everybody that was there knows it's true. And I think at the end of the day, we have to just take away the fact that we know it's true and move forward. You know, it's that what in this day and age is a piece of evidence that is so rock solid that everybody will listen. I don't know what it is, because video can be faked, photos can be faked, sound recordings, EVPs, they can be faked, I guess. You know, spirit boxes, that's questionable anyway. So,
well, K2 readings can be faked.
Yeah. And that's where, when we come away from an investigation, we know ourselves what we've captured, and we can present it to everybody to make their own mind up what they think.
Yep.
But we know that we didn't fake it. So it is what it is. And we've just got to accept that we're never going to be able to definitively talk somebody around. You know what I mean?
Unless we can time travel and go back.
Yeah. Now,
well, if you've already gone through the situation, take the information you needed, you go back and travel again, and you capture more, then you're pretty much set.
Well, I mean, there are so many movies out there that talk about this very subject. You know, I mean, you can watch a number of different Star Trek episodes where they talk about temporal prime directives. And Bill and Ted's
Quantum Leap was a great show.
That's what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
No. Sorry, we talked about sliders earlier. Sorry.
Hands down, best show about teleportation and time travel would be Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. Come on, you got to give it to Keanu Reeves.
Oh look, there are so many shows out there which. All right, here's one for you. Okay. Now, you can research it, and Jay probably knows all about this.
No, I have to beg to differ. Star Trek.
We're not talking about Star Trek now. Forget Star Trek. All right. I'm talking about reality. In the 1940s. What year was it? Did I get that there? In 1943, the US did an experiment, right, on a ship to make it basically invisible to enemy mines in the water. They used this thing called degaussing, which is they would run a series of cables around the hull of the ship, and then they would charge them. And the idea behind it was it would cancel out the magnetic field created by the hull of the ship, and as such, the mines wouldn't be attracted to it, which means they had a better chance of survival. Now,
The Philadelphia experiment.
the Philadelphia experiment, there are so many parts that are definitely have been proven that something happened, but obviously reports aren't there, and then there's a lot being left to speculation and storytelling to know exactly what the truth was.
They would have redacted a lot of information on that, though.
No, they didn't redact anything. The files completely disappeared. Now, what we do know is that it was called Operation Rainbow, I believe. And what they reckon happened was not only when they activated it, not only did the ship create a negative magnetic field, but then they reckon the ship visibly disappeared, which wasn't part of the experiment. Now that to me is a very interesting one, because if the ship has just turned invisible but it's still there, you should see the displacement line in the water where the ship's hull was, the shape of the ship's hull where it's displaced the water that it's sitting in. But then they reckon it fully transported, and they reckon it was gone for several minutes, and witnesses apparently said that it turned up in Norfolk, Virginia, and then after several minutes it re-emerged at the Philadelphia shipyards. They reckon the ship was steaming, it was hot, it was to the touch. They reckon some people were fused to the decks through the walls. Some people were missing completely, and a lot of people dead, and whoever survived basically went mad. Now, there was a merchant ship which also witnessed the experiment, and trying to find any information to work out what's real, what's fact, and what has just become so many different sci-fi movies leaves a lot to be desired.
Sorry, I might have got mixed up there with the Philadelphia experiment. I don't think it was that one.
Well, that's the famous one, that one. There's a film about it, which is actually a pretty good film. I think that was made in the 80s.
The Philadelphia experiment had a lot to do with the UFOs.
Nope.
And literally teleporting a naval ship in 1943.
Well, that's not the information that I've got. It was all about making the ship invisible to enemy mines. So that's it. That's already interesting.
Yeah, it was like it's like a cloaking device, basically.
No, it's not a cloaking device. It's not. It wasn't supposed to make the ship invisible to the human eye. You would have still seen the ship to the naked eye. You would have seen the ship on radar. It was all about, because back in the Second World War, they used a lot of those magnetic mines in the oceans, minefields.
Yep.
It was all about neutralizing the negative, the magnetic field of the ship, so that it didn't attract the mines in and blow up the ships. That's what it was all about. So that experiment, you would think, isn't beyond the realm of reality for the time, because you're talking about coils, you're talking about electronics and things like that, which is still probably ahead of the time for back then. But again, it was within the realm of possibility, talking about cloaking devices and things like that.
Do they have a name of the ship by chance?
The USS Eldridge.
Oh, it is the Eldridge. Yep.
And you can find a lot of information about the Eldridge. And
talking on time travel.
What was that?
This...
I think the internet's letting us down with Jay.
I said talk. Yeah, talking about the possibilities of time travel and things like that, but also going back to the Bermuda Triangle story of Flight 19.
Mm-hmm.
Have a look at that movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, we've all seen it. We've all seen it.
Flight 19 mysteriously appears out in the desert. Yeah, that's what I mean. Would that be classed as time travel or portal travel?
That
was still much of a muchness, because they're traveling.
Yeah, that's time, that's space, that's alien influence, possibly. That is portals, wormholes. There's 1,000 different stories. I mean, wormholes actually does fall partially into the time travel universe, because one of the forms of time travel is the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which is all about
Black
wormholes. No, not black holes. Although, again, they're a natural thing, which...
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's any... Well, we've never actually dealt with a black hole to know. It's like all
They've
things...
never actually tested. Yeah, they've never actually tested it. It's like to get near a black hole and send a probe through or anything like that. They've never tried that.
Well, they can't. The gravity involved in a black hole, you'll never get the information out. Light doesn't even escape it. And that's how dense it is. You know, everything gets crushed long before it gets near the center of it all. And if light can't escape it, there's no way radio waves or anything else are going to escape it. It puts out a lot, but once you're caught in that, the event horizon or the gravitational field, you're stuffed. Makes for good films, but you know. And I've got a funny feeling a lot of where the conversation is going to go is about different films and about the reality of them all, you know, and what the possibilities could be. Pardon me.
Speaking about what
the possibility of the reality of it.
I didn't get that. Hello?
Can you repeat that one?
I think we've lost Jay again. No, I think we've lost Jay. I can see him, but I can't hear him.
So, Gary, to do with that Philadelphia project, I've just sent you a naval document about it that outlines what it was. There's books written after it.
I'm not going to have time to read through it all, but do you want to run over the highlights?
No. Just quickly, so it was done in 1944, by the looks of it. The genesis of the Philadelphia experiment, they say it's a myth, backdates 1955 with the publication of The Case for UFOs by late Morris K. Jessup. Said that they had these generators that they'd made for the front of the boat and the back of the boat, providing 1,000 hertz instead of the standard 400 hertz. The high frequency generator produced corona discharges and other well-known phenomena associated with the high frequency generators. None of the crew has suffered effects, so no one suffered effects by the looks of it. The ONR has never conducted any investigations on invisibility in 1943 or at any other time, established in 1946. Could be possible, except in the realm of science fiction. No, that's about it. There's not a heap on it. But from what it's saying...
And that's the thing. Science fiction is only science fiction until it becomes science fact.
Exactly. What does it say? And it goes in to say that initially the ship had been undetectable from going from one shipyard to another place in Philadelphia.
Well, this is what they were saying. They're saying it turned up in Norfolk, Virginia, which I don't know what's around there. And
it says... According to Ellen, the ship was rendered invisible and teleported to and from Norfolk in a few minutes, with some terrible after effects for crew members. Supposedly, the incredible feat was accomplished by applying Einstein's unified field theory.
Wormhole technology. Which goes against the official statement, which is what I was telling you about. The official statement was it was to do with degaussing the ship's hull so that it didn't attract magnetic mines. And for that to work, you would think that they would have some kind of a device at both ends of the ship so that you could run a charge between the coils and through the coils between the two units.
If you're running at a different hertz, then it's going to throw off. If you're running it, what are they saying? The extreme multiplication of hertz compared to what they normally come out with. That's going to affect the magnetic field.
Yeah.
Oh, Jay's back.
Yeah, but do we have audio?
Yeah.
Oh, we do.
Oh, there he is.
This is really painful.
Well, that's all right. Because now it's like, hey, what are we up to? He'll say something. We're like, we've said that.
Yeah. It's like I'm dealing with dial-up.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, that is painful, that.
Time travel to the nearest dimension. and we'll talk to you.
Well, doing research on this and everything, they've actually said that traveling forward in time is relatively easy. Like I mentioned before, when you approach the speed of light, time slows down. So when you slow back down, you're in the future. Now, what is difficult is when you want to go backwards in time, because there are so many issues that you need to be careful of. You know, everybody's heard of the butterfly effect. They've heard of the grandfather paradox. You know, what, like take for instance the grandfather paradox, right? If you want to go back and kill your grandfather, right?
What?
No. This is the grandfather paradox, right? If you go back in time, kill your grandfather, then if your father is never born, then you're never born. How can you go back in time to kill him? There you go. That's making you both think.
But that's I don't know.
This is where it gets messy. It becomes
That's where multiverses come into play.
That's one of the theories. And it's been mathematically made possible. You know, they've said that is a possibility. Have you ever seen that film Sliding Doors?
No.
All right.
No.
So here's the premise, right? This lady, she's at work. She's heading home in London. Gets on the train. Now, what happens is when she goes to get on the train, the doors close, and she misses the train. So she waits for the next train. Now she gets home, and life goes on. You know, she's there with her boyfriend. Everything's good, but they end up having an argument, and they end up breaking up. And then what happens is you cut back to that same point in time where she's going to get on the train. But this time, as she's approaching to get on the train, there's a guy puts his hand in the door to open the doors. She gets on the train. And what happens then, she gets home 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early to find her boyfriend in bed with another woman. And it completely ruins her life. And then she ends up meeting this other guy, and life goes on. Now, in the other universe, obviously, she ends up breaking up with the boyfriend anyway and ends up meeting this guy completely different. And that brings in the whole possibility of, is our life predetermined at certain points in time and space? How we get there can vary, but at certain points in time and space, are we all supposed to be right where we need to be? That's another.
I have to say yes.
That's another head twister. Yeah.
I'm supposed to be here at work.
But do you work?
Well,
that's not what we're talking about anyway, is it? Now, you got the other one. You got the very similar to the grandfather paradox, and I guess films like The Terminator look into it, and that is, do you go back in time and kill Hitler when he's a kid, knowing what he's going to do when he grows up?
But does that make it right?
if you alter the past, it has effect on the future as a ripple effect.
Exactly. So this is like a smaller version of the butterfly effect, because if you kill Hitler, do you stop the Second World War, or do you just change the way the Second World War happens? And then you got to remember, every person that dies, gets injured, or anything as a result of anything to do with the war, their lives spread out, and that you're now talking about billions upon billions of different multiverse. You know what I mean? So do you go back and kill him, or do you just let it happen, put it down to that's history, we've learned from it, and move forward?
See, that's what I mean. You go and kill a baby then, and you turn out fine that if you had left it, it would have turned out fine. Or do you go there and not kill the baby and then go, oh, well, why didn't you kill Hitler? You're a piece of trash.
Well, that's the argument. You know? There was a TV show which I think they never made one season of it, and it's got James Franco in it where, excuse me, I think it's called 1963 or something like that. And they find this, it's a natural point where when you go through, you go back to 1963, but it doesn't matter how much time travel and you come back. If you go back in there again, you go to the exact same spot on the exact same day at the exact same time in 1963. Now, he wanted to spend the time in there to learn all about, because the guy was a teacher and he wanted to help some of his students where things happened around that time. So he made little changes, and then when he came back to see how it was, he realised that they'd made catastrophic changes. So, of course, he goes back in time to try and correct it. Ultimately, he decides he gets involved in the Lee Harvey Oswald thing and, the JFK assassination, and learn everything that he can about it. Ultimately, he stops the assassination of JFK. When he comes back, he expects everything to be good, but it isn't. And it just goes to show you don't know, if you go back in time and change a single thing, what it's going to affect in the future because of what Jay was saying about the ripple effects. You don't know what else it's bouncing off.
Well, no, that's like another one when you were speaking about with Hitler, if you'd kill him or not. The first thing that popped in my head is that, I think it was a book and a show, The Man in the High Castle.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at that and it's like, well, yeah, if something did happen and World War II was to happen, it probably would have turned out just as bad, if not worse.
Well, I mean, you go back then, I think there were a lot of different people that could have possibly kick-started it, but Hitler's the one that did it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, another movie, like I said, we're talking about a few movies at the moment. There's a film from the 80s or the 90s called The Final Countdown. Now, this was, where they were doing some sort of weird experimentation. I think it was one of the big aircraft carriers like the Enterprise or the Carl Vinson or something, one of those big, massive aircraft carriers. And all the instruments go haywire. They lose contact with, with the ground and all that sort of stuff. And then ultimately they find out that they're in December 1942, 43, whenever Pearl Harbor happened. And they came across the Japanese fleet heading towards Pearl Harbor. Now they know what's going to happen, and they've got all the Super Hornets and things like that, and they actually launch them, and they've got the ability to absolutely obliterate all the Japanese Zeros and everything before Pearl Harbor ever happens. But they realised at the last minute too many things would change, so they pulled it and landed and got out the way and let history do its thing. But how tempting would it be to change things thinking you're doing something right and then ultimately stuffing everything up?
Yeah, because then you got to think of it on the other hand, if it doesn't go ahead, what monstrosities is it going to cause in people? What murderers or anything else that would have been taken out if Pearl Harbor didn't happen?
Now, the other thing to think about is if you look at figures like Hitler or Mussolini or any of these people that were bad, they must have all been good at some point, you would think, and something's led them down the path that they went. Working out where that trigger point was and lead them in a different direction, you might not have to kill them, but you're still left with the same thing as what happens when you come back.
You're still altering time.
You are.
Still be haywire. It's the unknown.
It is. They've made films and, Terminator, same sort of thing. Go back, kill Sarah Connor, you kill John Connor before he's born. Exact same principle. And how many Terminator films have there been now? So that didn't work. You know what I mean?
Or you just watch Futurama and you figure out that Fry's his own dad or grandfather.
Never watched an episode of that.
Oh, there you go. It's the whole time travel thing. He becomes his own father.
Oh, no. There's another... there's no point me talking about it, but there's this film. Now, if I try to talk about it, you'll go, what kind of effed up kind of film is that about?
Is it on an adult website or
no? It's not on an adult website.
Okay,
but
I just thought I'd just double check.
No, it's about this guy there's time agents, right? And there's this person killing all of the time agents, so they send their best time agent back to try and find out who it is. And then ultimately, it sort of splits off into multiple, so there's like a couple of him there. And then what happens is one of them ends up going through a sex change and becomes a female agent. But then another version of him goes back and hits it off with the female him, and they have a baby, and he's the baby. It's messed up, I know, but
Well, how does that work, having that in a sex change, because you don't have the appropriate equipment to have...
hey, it was a film. I didn't ask questions like that. I was just too busy trying to work out in my head what the hell was going on, because you don't find out right until the very end what happens.
I think you've just broken Jay.
You just fried my mind.
Oh, he's gone all distorted and everything.
Well, we could call you Paula if you would like.
So, how would you feel knowing that your mom was you, your dad was you, and you're the baby of you and you?
You'd only have you to blame.
You only have yourself to blame, yeah. Yeah, I think Jay's not going to start to change colour now. He's on overload. But the possibilities that time travel, you know.
Blink 3 times if you're okay.
He's not. I think his beard's about to fall off. Anyway, let's try and keep it on track for the last 8 minutes. We've got 8 minutes left.
Ooh.
So time travel, you know. I've still got other things that I could have brought
I believe
up,
it's possible.
you know,
I'd have to agree to an extent, yes.
what's that?
The time travel's possible.
Oh, it is possible. It is possible, and I'm not talking about
It's
mechanically.
plausible or possible?
No, it's possible. It not on a scale that you and I would think, you know, not in a science fiction scale, but in small bits. Like I said, there was this thing. There's these 2 astronauts from Russia. They're twins, and obviously they both passed the space program. Now they've both spent time on the International Space Station. Now one of them spent, I think it was 56 days on the space station, and the other one spent close to 200 days. Now, because they were up higher and everything's, you know, time travel's different and stuff like that, it actually works out that now one of them, the time they were born 6 minutes apart, and now, and this is where it's infinitesimal, it's there's a fraction of a second difference in their ages now. You know, but that's just talking about traveling around the Earth in an Earth orbit. When you start talking about approaching speeds like the speed of light and things like that, that's when you're really starting to get into the science fiction area. You know, the Einstein-Rosen bridge, you're talking wormholes. And because in reality, they need to come up with a way of time travel where you're not just going in a straight line super fast. It works, but you're out there in the middle of nowhere. It only becomes a usable thing if you can end up at the same spot. And that's where wormhole technology comes into place, which they were sort of looking at it a little bit when they were talking, you know, building the Large Hadron Collider. They were, you know, wanting to create antimatter or something like that, which apparently would have given them the energy levels to create these wormholes, but they couldn't come up with a containment system. And you don't hear much about what's going on at the Large Hadron Collider anymore. You did at one point, but not anymore.
It's because MacGyver went in there and fixed it.
With a penknife and a shoestring. Yeah. I did have something else that I was going to say, and I've just totally forgotten what it was. How about that? Forget it right at the end of the show. It's terrible. I need now to go back in time to remind myself so I can come back to now and then go, bang, I know what we're talking about.
But knowing you're like, you'd forget what you're doing once you got back in time.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget to wind your watch.
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, there's always one.
And it's always Jay. Anyway, we're going to have to go in a minute. We've actually got some good investigations coming up soon, and we have the technology now that we are going to do some live crosses from some of the investigations. I think we've got one coming up next month, which we'll probably do part of the show from it, but we'll do a whole show on it. And there'll be some interesting footage from that because it sounds pretty good from what I can hear.
So here's a random one for you, Gary. Probably sounds pretty lame, but is flying across time zones time travel
I've
to
often
a smaller degree?
I've often said, is that the case? It's
Because even flying just from the east to the west coast.
well, you got the
our
international
own
you got the
country.
international date line and things like that, and
Exactly.
it's a man-made concept. It's not an actual. You're not actually changing things. You're just crossing a line, an imaginary line.
Yes, but then those same imaginary lines also have certain things to do with places of like what we spoke with the last podcast that we did, or
Yeah.
one of the last ones we did. They're man-made imaginary lines, and they sync up with everything else.
Well, this is another thing when you're talking about. I mean, we've talked for the last hour now on time travel, and everything that we have really talked about is man-made machines, how we can create time travel.
What is time not a concept of man?
Time, as we
It
know
is.
it, is a concept of man,
Sorry,
but
construct of man. Sorry.
yeah, it is. But it is still there.
Yes.
Where no matter how you want to quantify it, it was always there. We are the ones that have quantified it. We set up the Gregorian calendar or the Mayan calendar to try and measure it, from one moment to the next. But
So who says we're correct?
well, there's that. And then what's not to say that there aren't natural places where time travel is possible?
Well, the Bermuda Triangle is one.
Take for instance when we were down in Albany, right? When we were down in Albany doing the paranormal investigation down there, maybe 10, 12 years ago, we actually got contact on the board with a woman that she had a feeling that she could feel us as like spirits.
Yep.
And obviously we were contacting with her as spirits, but she said she was from 1913 or something like that. And we were contacting, was that a trans-dimensional conversation? Because when you start breaking this whole thing down into multiverses and things like that.
Well, yeah, when you say it like that, then it also comes out to reincarnation. In a sense.
That's a whole different show, that one.
It all flows, no, but it all flows into it.
It does. And that's the thing about paranormal and many different aspects which some people might not consider paranormal. They do all tie into each other.
Yeah.
Which is a very natural thing to do. Things always sort of bounce off each other, and there is a natural progression from one to the next. And I don't know, is time travel possible? Well, if it is possible, it's already happening, because even if it might be the future when they invent it, if they are coming back in time or going forward in time, it's already happening.
Well, either the government's just hiding it like everything else.
Well, they would have to, because if it was available to the general public, the amount of shit that you could get yourself in by going back and changing things, they would have to maintain a large amount of control. And this goes back into a whole other thing, which is when you start talking about, what was it called now? The
hot tub time machine.
No, what's that? That I'm gonna sound like an idiot. So I'm not talking about that. No, you're talking about things that change. There's a name for it, and I've forgotten the name of it. Who's that South African dude that was in jail for something? Mandela. The Mandela effect. That's a completely different story again, where when you go back to things like when you watch something as simple as take for instance,
the Monopoly Man.
Take for instance, The Empire Strikes Back. What does Darth Vader say to Luke Skywalker? When he tells him,
"I am your father."
He says, "I'm your father."
What was that?
He does not mention his name.
Exactly. Some people swear black and blue that's the case. Then you look at things like, what do you call it? The Forrest Gump. The life was like a box of chocolates line. Some people swear it is different to another. Some say life was like a box of chocolates, which I think is what it is.
He says life's like a box of chocolates.
Life,
I'm sure.
Life's like, life was like, or life is like. And then
life is like.
Life. Mama said life was
like. There you go. See, Jay got it wrong. And different things like. And then you got,
Well, there's, yeah, it's,
and then you got
yeah.
Nelson Mandela. Was he released from prison or did he die in prison? Some people swear he died in South African jail. Other people know he was released. And that's where the actual name Mandela effect came from.
Life is like, not life was like.
Eh?
It's life is like, not life was like.
See?
Life is like a box of chocolates.
Anyway. And yeah, so there are, what was it? This is specifically a West Australian thing. There are actual documented educational TV. You know, you used to watch the educational shows when you were at school as a kid. And in some of these shows, there are actual globes, right? There's a globe in some of these shows which shows there's a big landmass off the west coast of Australia, which obviously there isn't. You know, it's way bigger than like Christmas Island or the Cocos Islands. But there are some that are like that. And excuse me. And again, is that one of these? It might have been the case a volcano's gone off in an alternate universe, something like that, which again ties into the parallel dimensions.
Or was it just a case that they printed off the globe wrong and just stuck it over and went, oh, well, it's there now?
Yeah, exactly. So there are so many different aspects to it. Anyway, we're out of time, guys. We've gone over by 2 minutes.
Well, wind it back.
So I'll say goodbye for now, and we'll see you all again next week. So I'll leave it up to Jeremy to do his little close off line.
Keep it spooky.
See you, Jay. All right, see ya.